or link to Mercury, and we are going to look at some of the features that we have in our Mercury program. Plus, I'll be talking about some of the new features that we have been working on that you will see in uh, next version or so. So I'm going to be talking about briefly. I'm going to be talking about how you can download, how you can install, what setup you need to do, and so on and so forth. In the next part of my demo, I'll be showing you some of the common transactions and talking about what it can handle and what it can actually do for you. And then I'll be talking about some of the new stuff that we have been working on, some of the new exciting stuff that we are constantly working on based on the feedback from our customers, from your customers, from resellers, and so on and so forth. So first, let's see how you can download. You can go onto our FTP site. If you need the details, you can send an email to joan@rrdisty.com. She will then send you all the details where you need to go and what user ID and password you need to log in. And you can then log on to our FTP where we have all our add-on modules. So you can see the list of all our add-on modules from our FTP. You need to go to a folder called RR Mercury Card Processing, and there are a few files in there. The files in the base folder is for RMS, so you can just download whatever is the latest version of the RR Mercury module. So at the moment it's 3.4. We constantly update and upload new versions, so you should download whichever is the latest version available. Everything that is an old version moves into the old folder, and anything that is to do with POS 2009 can be found in the POS 2009 folder. So all the manuals and everything should be in the base folder. So there are a few files, as you can see, files for the base program, files for patch close application, and some of the other files. So you can always go to the RRFTP and download these files from the RR Mercury folder. One of the other things that you will need and you should have handy is our RR Key Manager program, which can again be found on our FTP site. So you just simply go into the RR Key Manager folder and download the latest version of the zip file. So at the moment it's version 120, and I thoroughly recommend that you also download this nice little document here which explains how our keys work and how you can get keys from our offices. So you download and install the RR Key Manager program and go through the RR Key Manager document, which will allow you to request keys. Now, once you have downloaded, simply install the applications. So you can install the RR Mercury application. It's a very straightforward installation. Just double click on the setup program and go through the various setup options. If you're using Windows 7 64-bit, we have seen that right clicking and running as administrator helps. Because it gives the right registry access to the application right from the start. Right from the beginning, right from when you actually install the software, so you do not come across any weird errors. So you should, so remember, if you're using Windows 7 64-bit, you should install the setup by right-clicking on the setup and selecting Run as Administrator. I would recommend that you do this for all our add-on modules. In fact, anything you set up on Windows 7 64-bit that requires administrative access should run as administrator. So you can install the application, plus you can also install the RR Key Manager. So when you install RR Key Manager, it will ask you to initialize the database. So you just go into your database tab, enter your database details, make sure you are entering the correct database details, click on change or OK. When you do it for the first time, you will have an OK button, and then you will see a blank screen if it's a new database, and an initialize button on the right hand side. So if you click on the initialize button, all these other buttons will be activated, and you can click on request, save the XML file, and email it to us, and in return we will send you another XML file which will have your key. Once you receive your XML file, just click on import and point to your XML file and click OK. and that will create an entry for that module for that database. Remember that the keys are locked to databases, so if you for any reason need to recreate the database or restore the database or even create a new database, then you will need new keys. You will also need new keys if you change any details in your configuration under store option. So the key is also locked to your store name and store address. So if you change any of these details, or if you want to change any of these details, you will need new keys. So just remember that you will need new keys if you restore a backup of your database, or if you change any of the configuration details in RMS configuration store tab. And this is true for any module. The keys are locked by database, and they're locked by store name and store address. Okay, so once you have installed it, we have two programs basically for Mercury. One is the base application, that is the main back office manager, and the other one is something that we called as batch close service. Now, batch close service is not compulsory. It's just an extra bit of application that is used to close RR MPS batches on a scheduled basis. So if you don't want to use that, and if you want to go with what the Mercury batch close time is, which is between 3 and 4 a.m. EST time, then you can just simply use that option. So you do not need the automatic or a scheduled batch close service. So all you need in that case is the RRMPS program, which you are seeing on your screen at the moment. So when you install it, there are a few things you need to go through it. Obviously, when you first install it and open the application, it will ask you to connect to your database. You can connect to the database, click OK, and restart the application and log into the program. So when you log in for the first time, you need a user ID and password, which is 12345, and the password is password. And again, this is true for all our other modules. The default user ID and password will be 12345, and password will be password, all lowercase. So the first time you log in, there are a few things you need to do. One of the things that you need to do is you need to install hooks. And installing hooks is very straightforward. It is telling you what is required, and when you click on install, it will tell you what is being installed. Now you can see that there are other hooks that are not required, so you don't need to worry about them. You can't tick them, so it doesn't matter whether they are unticked or ticked, because they are not going to be used for RRMPS program. On this screen, they cannot be ticked because it is not required by RRMPS. So we do not need to worry about all those hooks. The ones that are required and the ones that we need to worry about and that needs to be present are the ones that will be automatically installed when you click on install. At the same time, if you want to uninstall, this is the screen where you can uninstall hooks. So for any reason you want to uninstall the Mercury program and need to get rid of the hooks as well, this is the screen you need to do it from. And close will close the application, close that screen. The other thing you need to do, or you can do, is set up buttons for the POS. So these are the few buttons that we have. So depending on what functionality you want to achieve from the POS side of things, you can set up some of these custom pause buttons. So I went ahead and created all custom pause buttons that are available. So if you're using EBT, if you're using any type of gift card, then you can create the button one called get card balance. If you're using tip, you can use print and process tip. If you are going to use the reprint function, then you can select or create button 2, which is reprint receipt. So again, depending on what you want to use on the POS, you can create the corresponding buttons for them on the screen. Okay, so that's hooks and buttons. The first time that when you log in, it will ask you to create the database. So all you have to do is you need to go on the database administrator screen and click run. I've already created the table, so I don't need to do that again, but you can create the tables by simply clicking on run. The next time we have any major release which requires a database upgrade, it will automatically ask you when you first time log in, when you log in into it first time after upgrade, it will ask you and it will tell you that it requires a login. It requires you to update, and you can just simply click run and it will upgrade the application for you. Okay, now you have a bare minimum system. You have installed the hooks, you have installed the pause buttons. Now you need to do the main setup. So for that, we need to just make sure what functionality are we going to use. So depending on the functionality that we are going to use, we are going to we are going to be needing some of the options pre-set up in RMS. And for that, what I'll recommend is you quickly go through some of these tabs and see what are the options that you need to set up in RMS. So first of all, if you are going to use EBT, you need to create a tender type for EBT. If you're going to use a tip, you need to create a tip item. So some of these things you need to pre-set up in RMS. You can't create from these screens. So you can create some of the tender types that you're going to use in RMS. One thing that we need to make sure is the tender types that we are going to use must be, so for example, if I go into credit card, for example, the one that I've set up to be used with Mercury needs to be of the type other. So just remember, any tender type that you want to use with Mercury needs to be of the type other. None of the other tender types will work if they are not set to type as other. So make sure you select tender type as other. So you need to create that, then you need to create some of the non-inventory items that we are going to be using with our configuration settings. So let's go through our configuration. So first of all, you have general. So what is the connection timeout, how long it will try to connect to the Mercury servers. 0 is infinite, there is no timeout limit as such. Work on live settings. There is a switch between live and test settings. I am currently using my test settings, hence my live setting box is unticked. So this is a feature where you can use test settings for training, for testing, for whatever reason you don't want to use your customer's live settings, you can simply use your test settings. Record log is a feature for advanced debugging, just in case if you have any issues that cannot be reproduced or for whatever reason it's not clear what the issue is, then record log is helpful. And we record all the log in a text file, which you can send it to us. You can send it to us and we can analyze it and try and debug the situation more quickly. Then we have a feature called tokens, which is one of the major features in our MPS or Mercury rather, which is tokenization. Tokens is something that allows you to store customer details without actually storing the real details. So for example, if you want to keep customers details, i.e. their credit card details, the number, the expiry date, and so on and so forth, then for various reasons, we cannot keep these details on our database for compliance, for whatever reason. So what Mercury allows us to do is it allows us to get a token for this piece of information, and for us the token is nothing but just a string of various characters. And what it allows us to actually do is it's an identifier for the customer details with Mercury. So all you have to do is you have, when you want to do your transaction, like for example recurring transactions, when you want to charge for subscription, when you want to charge for recurring invoices, for whatever reason you want to use the same credit card details, then you can simply send the token to Mercury and they will charge the card automatically. So that is very important. You have recurring or one time. So if you only want to use the token once, or you can use the same token multiple times. Um, Close card approval screen automatically, so you do not want to click finish on the approval screen, so we have an option here. Address verification service, so we have full inbuilt address verification and CV2 functionality, so you can select how you want that functionality to be effective. And if none of the data matches, then you can ask to cancel the transaction. So if you want to use that security level, then you can do that. Then we have test settings and live settings. So this is the piece of information you need to get from Mercury. This is the important bit. This is something that allows you to identify, or your customer to be identified on Mercury systems. So you need to get this, you need to set up an account with Mercury and get the merchant ID and the rest of the details from them. So if you're going to use gift card issue or reload, then you need to create a non-inventory item and select that on this screen. We have got something called session variables, which I'm going to come back to a little bit later. We have also got tips, so you can use either a work order as a tip transaction or a hold as a tip transaction. So we are not limiting to just work order or just hold. You can use either of them depending on how you want to use it. And tip item as an RMS item, again, that needs to be added to the transaction with the value of the tip when you authorize the tip. Check settings, if you have a different check merchant ID, this is for receiving checks. So if you have a different merchant ID for that, then you can specify it here. Offline, if for whatever reason, which is highly unlikely, if you want to use Mercury, if you want to use credit card transactions, do credit card transaction when Mercury is offline for whatever reason, then you can set up a system under the offline tab. What it allows you to do is it allows you to actually take credit card transactions while Mercury is off and then send them all the transactions together when they come back online. And for any transaction that do not go through will be posted in for this customer, so that you can see what happened and what you need to do to recharge the customer. The other settings is receipt settings. So we have got a full set of options for how you want to print receipt. First of all, display preview. So do you want to see the preview of each and every receipt? Not very common, so you can untick that if you don't want to see it. Do not print receipt only after asking, and print receipt automatically after each transaction. This is some of the familiar options that we have from RMS. So if you want the system to automatically print receipts, then you can select the third option. Also, it allows you to select which type of receipt you want to print, because it will print two receipts by default. One is a customer receipt that you hand out to the customer, and the other is a merchant receipt that the merchant keeps. So if you want to print both of them, then like what you see on the screen, you can tick both the options. But if you don't want to print either of those, then you can untick one of the options. MacTech, some of the options for the iPad, display pin pad expiry. This will display the expiry of the pin pad. Pin pad comes with a finite number of transactions, which is, I think at the moment, 1 million transactions. So if it reaches to the last, I think last 1,000 odd transactions, then it can start giving you an expiry message on the pin pad, just so that the merchant can replace the pin pad in time and is not caught out when they are busy. So that will help them replacing the pin pad. And then there are some of the other options. Do you want it to beep when you do transactions, and so on and so forth. Batch settlement. So this is what I was talking earlier. If you are using MPS default, which is 3 to 4 a.m. EST, or you can even do merchant initiated. Under merchant initiated, you have got two options. One is manual. So you can go into our batch close option and do the batch close manually, or use our batch close service, which is another application that I was talking about earlier, and give it a time, and it will automatically do a batch close at that time. Mostly you can stick at MPC default, But if you are in a different time zone and you want to make sure that the transactions are posted on the same day, then you can select other options. And last but not the least, there is EBT settings. So if you're going to do food stamp transactions, electronic cash benefits, then you can select one tender type from RMS. So you can create a specific tender type for that and select it on the screen. So these are the options, these are the configuration that you need to do once. Because the changes are kept in the database, you only need to do this once, and it will affect all the machines that are going to take Mercury credit cards. Okay. Then you have certain other options like batch close. For example, if you want to do a batch close manually, then you simply go in and click on process, and it will settle all the batches that are there in the system. Then you have got process offline transactions. So like I was talking about earlier, if you, for any reason, if you do transactions in offline mode when MPS is offline, then you can settle all those transactions by going into offline process screen. You can design the receipts. As I was saying earlier, it prints two receipts. One is for a merchant, one is for customer. If you want to design those receipts for whatever reason, we give you a designer, and it allows you to design the receipt, whichever receipt you want to design. So it comes with a nice little preprint receipt. We have a similar function on the POS. For whatever reason you want to reprint the receipt, you can go in and reprint the receipt. So it gives you all the transactions that were done today, but once you are in, you can change the filter and enter whatever filter you want to enter. So if you want to look at signature for that transaction, there is no signature because it was a pre-auth, but let's have a look at this one. So you can look at the signature, and if you want to print, then you can click on OK and print that that receipt. There are some of the receipts, some of the reports. First, you have batch close summary, so you can see what has been the totals of each batch. Offline transaction summary, so if there were any offline transactions, you can see the reports for that, and tip collection, which allows you to see collection, how much you have collected in tips, or you can see the tip amounts for each such transaction. Okay, so these are some of the options that we have in the Mercury back office. So once you have done the configuration, the next thing you need to do is actually set up which register is going to use what type of pin pad hardware. So at the moment we have iPad, which we are going to use Centurion device, and signature iPad, which is an iPad with a signature capture facilities. And we have also added something very new and very exciting, which is called iDynamo, which works, and I've got this just to illustrate what it is. It's a attachment that connects to likes of iPhone or iPod, and it basically converts those devices into credit card taking or credit card capture devices. So you can do your credit card transaction using iPhone or iPod devices. So it's a small attachment that connects to the iPod or iPhone, and then you can just simply swipe the card, as you can see, and it allows you to connect to the Mercury software and use those as your credit card capture devices. Okay, so that's something new that has been added recently. So what it allows you to do on this screen is it allows you to attach or tell the system what different types of hardware you're going to use on different registers. So it will list your entire list of registers from RMS, and then simply you go and say, I have a signature capture iPad, or I just have a simple iPad, or I have an iDynamo. So you can do all that. So once you have set up, you can go and save and close. And the other thing you need to do is the card type. So if you remember, I was talking about you need to create different tender types in RMS. So what you do is you create a tender type, for example, for credit card, one tender type for debit card, the other one for maybe some merchants want to create different tender types for different types of cards, for example, for MasterCard, for Visa, for American Express, so on and so forth. So you can create all this, and on this screen you can basically come in and tell the system what type of cards you want to use against those tender types. So for me, the first option is credit card, or you can even set it up as a debit card, or you can set it up as credit and debit both. Or if it was a EBT cash benefit type of card, then you can set it up like that, or you can select the card type corresponding to whatever it is going to be. There is a very nice little function here where you can set up a validation mask. So what you can do is that for merchants that want to have individual card types set up in their system, for example, Visa, MasterCard, MX, Diners, for example, they all start with their own four-digit numbers. So you can set up a mask and tell the system that I always want MasterCard to be used for this tender type. I want only Visa cards to be used for this tender type. So if by mistake you swipe, your cashier swipes wrong card type, then the system will not accept it. So you can keep all the cards different. You can also have cashback, support cashback and cashback limit if you want to do that. Okay, so this is the basic setup that you need to do. Once you have done the setup, you're pretty much ready to use the MPS system on your POS. So remember, you need to install hooks, you need to set up your custom pause buttons, and you need to do your basic configuration setup by going into setup configuration, and then by going into register settings and card types. So once you have done all these, then you should be ready to use the system on the POS. So let's have a look at the POS and see what options we have got available. So like I was saying, there will be some custom pause buttons. So there are 5 custom pause buttons corresponding to Mercury system. One is the get card balance. So if your customer walks up to the till and says, can you give me what is the balance on my gift card, or what is the balance on my food stamp or EBT, or what is the balance on my cash benefit card. So all 3 are available. Reprint receipt, as I was saying, you can reprint receipts for a transaction that has been done using the RR Mercury. For whatever reason, if you want to reprint the receipt for the signature, or if you want to just print to keep in your record, you can do that. Also, you have got process tips and print, which are corresponding to the tip functionality. So we're going to see a simple tip transaction. And also you have got a get token. So if you want to fetch the token for a customer credit card, then you can just simply do it on an ad hoc basis. So let's have a look at how it works. So first of all, if you want to get a token for a customer, this is for storing customer credit card details without actually storing it in RMS database or for any other database for that matter. You are simply telling Mercury that this is the card details and give me the token against it that I can reuse all the time. So let's bring a token for Alan. All you have to do is just simply click on get token, and it asks me to swipe his card. So I can go ahead and swipe the card and ask it to bring the token for this card. Okay, so once I swipe the card, then it goes ahead and brings the token for that customer. Okay, so it's saying successful lookup, and this was the card number, and I can just click on finish. So the next time when I do a transaction for this customer and select my MPS configured credit card type, then the first thing it will tell me is that there is a token which is valid for 2 years that I can use. So if I was doing this transaction when the customer was not present, or for whatever reason I need to do a transaction over the phone, then I can simply use the credit card details that are stored with Mercury. So I can simply click on OK, and it goes ahead and approves the transaction. So you can see that the customer does not need to swipe the card or sign it. It simply goes ahead and does the transaction for me. So that is how the tokens work. You can store the token and reuse depending on how you have set up for as many times as you want. Okay, so let's have a look at a basic transaction. So for that, you don't need a customer. You can simply just go ahead and scan an item, select a card type that you have configured. So all the messages that I see on the pin pad, my cashier can also see it on the screen. So whatever the customer is looking at on the pin pad, cashier can also see it on the screen. So at the moment it says please swipe card, and then it says confirm amount. So I'm going to say yes, and then it says sign. So I've signed and click enter. And once I've signed, the cashier can also see the signature and verify the signature with the card. And to finish the transaction, I can click on finish, and this system goes ahead and prints 2 receipts because I have set up, I have asked it to print the customer receipt, the merchant receipt, and the RMS receipt. So it prints me 3 receipts. Okay, so that was a basic transaction. So simply like this, you can do a EBT transaction, a food stamp transaction, or even a gift card transaction. Gift card is one of the big plus points for Mercury. They can handle gift cards, so you can put both gift cards and your credit card provider into one. Okay, so let's talk about tips. So what tips allows us to do is it allows us to take tips from customers. So and inbuilt the functionality into our credit card system. So what you have to do is you just go in and first of all scan an item and select a customer if you wanted to. And then what it does is that it allows you to print a receipt that the customer can look at, and you can add a tip line, and the customer can enter the tip amount. We have been working on making this functionality as smooth as possible. So we have been having a lot of feedback from our end users, from our resellers, from our user community. So we have been working on some of those feedbacks, and in the next few versions you will see some of these new options coming up. And one of the options that you'll be seeing in the next few versions is that an ability to charge tips straight away without going through all the steps. So you can see a tip line on this receipt. The customer can enter the tip amount, and then the cashier can come back and simply enter the tip amount for that transaction and charge the card. So you will see that. So at this stage, what you do is you just simply print this receipt so that you can take it to your customer table. You can print it to an OPOS printer and take it to the customer, and then once the customer agrees, you can go in and authorize the tip transaction. So you can see the transaction that we just did. You can go ahead and authorize. So now again, it's telling me that there is a token for this customer. Do you want to use that? If not, you can simply click on cancel, and the system will ask us to do a new transaction. So I confirm the transaction, and the system will approve it. So now in effect what I've done is I've captured customer card details so that I can charge the customer for the transaction plus the tip amount. And now once the customer has agreed to the tip amount, I can go in and finalize that transaction. So I can go in and select the transaction. Now there is some other options that we are working on that you will see on some of these screens, like customer details, reference numbers, and so on and so forth. So it allows us to track each and every transaction in a much more streamlined way. So we select the transaction, the system asks what is your tip amount, whatever it is, and click OK, and you can confirm. Now at this stage, we do not need to take customer's credit card details again because we have already authorized it, and all we have to do is just charge the customer for the transaction plus the tip amount and complete the transaction. Okay, so this is some of the transactions you can do using our MPS. You can do debit card transactions, you can do credit card transactions, you can do gift cards, top up and redeem. You can do your EBT transactions, you can do your food stamp or food stamp type of transaction. So these are all included out of the box in the RRMPS software. You can do your tips, you can do your card balances, and also you can get tokens on demand. Now this is what we currently have. Now let's talk about some of the things that we have been working on. One of the things that I've already talked about is adding new hardware, and one of the new hardwares that we have added is the iDynamo, which I was talking about earlier. Uh, Mercury is also internally working on adding some of the other hardware, so this list will be growing in the near future. So you can have various different type of hardware, just rather than restricting to 1, 2, or even 3. So at the moment we added this new um, exciting piece of hardware which connects to iPods or iPhones, which is called iDynamo. The other thing that we have done is that because now we have added this iDynamo thing, which brings iPod and iPhone into the picture, we have made the iPod and iPhone work as a poll display for RMS. Now this has nothing to do with Mercury. It's just that if you're using the iPod, mainly the iPod, as your credit card system, then why not use it as your poll display so that the customer can see how much they're paying and how much they're paying for what, and what they're actually buying, and so on and so forth. Normally, roughly the implementation cost of iPod as a poll display and a normal poll display, an Opus poll display, is roughly the same. The only good thing is that the iPod looks much more classier than the normal poll display. Because iPod is a touch sensitive device, we can also use it as a signature capture device. We can also use it as an interactive device rather than just a dumb poll display which tells you what you're buying and how much you're buying it for. So it immediately opens a lot of doors for some of these new things that we have been working on. So that one of the things that we are doing now is around iPod and iDynamo. The other thing that we have included, which is very nice little feature, is the capability to print the credit card details on the RMS receipt itself, so that you do not have to print separate receipts. So for example, if a merchant says, okay, you know what, I don't want to print a separate receipt, I just want to print all the credit card details, for example, the customer details, the credit card number or part of it, and the authorization code on just my RMS receipt, so that the customer only gets one receipt rather than having to give them more than one receipt. So we have got something called as session variables in RMS, so we can pass details from our add-on to the RMS program, and this is how we are going to print credit card details onto RMS receipt. Now, obviously you need to enable that option. Plus, you need to make sure that you have at least one um, session variable available in RMS system. It automatically assigns the number, so you don't need to worry about that. But it needs one, and you need to make sure it has one empty slot. So as you can see, it has created one session variable for our Mercury. And then the good thing is that you can actually control what you want to print on the RMS receipt. So DB address is the customer the credit card is registered to. So if you don't want to print, then you can just simply get rid of it. Transaction date, form of payment, and so on and so forth. So you can actually select what you want to print on RMS receipts. So this is a nice little feature that we have included in the last few versions, which allow us to print credit card details on the RMS receipt itself. Some of the other things that we have been working on is that we are streamlining our tip process, so you can simply print a receipt, take it to your customer, the customer enters the tip amount, signs it if it needs to be signed, then the cashier can come back on a screen, enter the tip amount, and complete the transaction. So it will streamline the tip process completely. So we have been working on it based on the feedback, and we will be releasing it in the next few versions. We are also working on making this module work in offline mode. So if your RMS database is not available for whatever reason, if your database server is off for maintenance or is off for various reasons, then you can simply keep on using your individual registers and charge customers credit cards, which will be a huge plus point. And then when the system comes online again, then like RMS synchronizes its offline database with the live database, our system will also synchronize all the transactions so that you can put all your transactions into your live database. So these are some of the new functions or functionalities we have been working on based on your feedback. So keep them coming. We'll certainly look at whatever feedback we receive and make changes accordingly, or add new features if that is what it is. So this is our MPS. If you have got any other questions, you can always get in touch, support@rrdisty.com. If you have any other administrative queries, please contact Joan, and her email is joan@rrdisty.com. Thanks a lot for taking time out. I hope you have learned something new. Bye for now.